first Titans were shaped in an age of isolation and unrest, when Mars was still torn apart by the Age of Strife. They were born from the needs of the early cult Mechanicus and its Mechanicum rulers, who required immense war engines to survive the brutal campaigns fought across the irradiated surface of the Red Planet, where feral mutants and unhinged thinking machines roamed freely. Step by step, the tech priests reclaimed Mars, and when the planet was finally secured, these towering engines of war no longer remained behind. They walked alongside the first Mechanicum fleets that ventured blindly through the warp, carrying the will of Mars outward to establish the earliest Forge worlds, each one giving rise to its own Titan Legion. Most Titans stand as vast silhouettes against the battlefield, their height ranging from several dozen meters to truly staggering proportions. A rare few, the Emperor Titans, rise to unimaginable heights, dwarfing all else around them. Though there are many classes, every Titan ultimately serves within the Collegia Titanica, bound together by ancient purpose and ritual. Their forms fall into broad grades, from swift scout titans that move ahead of the main force, to the battle titans that form the steady core of a legion, and finally the immense Emperor Titans, whose presence alone defines both attack and defense. Each Titan is treated not as a machine, but as a singular being worthy of reverence. Upon their creation, they are given high Gothic names, titles drawn from honored ideals of the Imperial cult, names such as Aquila Ignis or Dies Irae spoken with solemn respect. When one of these god engines is lost, the grief is not hidden. The Forge world that created it mourns openly, as though a living champion has fallen. At the heart of every Imperial Titan lies a machine spirit that is truly sentient, aware in a fractured and unpredictable way. Unlike the simpler spirits found in other war machines, these mind cores can think and feel. In recorded accounts, newly bonded princeps have been greeted within the mental landscape of their Titan, while others tell of tragic reactivations where a wounded spirit, scarred by its own destruction, turned in blind fury upon all around it. In form, most Titans echo the shape of the human body, though exaggerated and distorted, with thick legs, hunched heads, and immense torsos bristling with weapons. Their primary arms are weapons themselves fused directly into the frame, while additional armaments are mounted across the chassis. Even so, no two designs are truly alike. Patterns differ from Forge world to Forge world, sharing only the most basic structures, a fact made clear in the varied shapes of the Warhound-class Titans, where some appear broad and angular, and others more rounded, almost bestial. Each a different expression of the same ancient and terrible idea. The Rapier class moved lightly across the long memory of the Great Crusade and the Horus Heresy, a stout Titan built for speed and quiet reach rather than weight. It was smaller than any other known Imperial or Chaos Titan, even more lightly armed and faster than the Warhound that followed it. As the wars dragged on toward their bitter end, the Rapier slowly faded from the orders of battle, becoming an ever rarer presence among both loyal and traitor legions, until its absence felt as notable as its swiftness once had. Warhound-class Titans serve as the eyes and flanks of a Titan legion, the most common of the scout engines known to the Collegia Titanica. Their form is distinct, shaped like a towering warhound with reverse-jointed legs and weapons carried at the shoulders, giving them a predatory stance that sets them apart from other Titans. Though lightly armed and armored by Titan standards, they remain terrifying to conventional armored forces, cutting through them with practiced ease. They are most often deployed in pairs, a tradition born from dark history rather than tactical preference. During the Siege of Terra, packs of traitor warhounds were unleashed upon civilians, and the memory of that terror led the Adeptus Terra to forbid such massed deployments forever after. Built on many forge worlds and fitted with varied weapons, these Titans stand a little over 17 meters tall, and on the battlefield their twin-barreled turbo lasers have proven more than capable of tearing apart even the heaviest armored foes. The dire wolf was conceived as a heavier kind of scout, larger than a warhound yet smaller than a true battle titan, and it walked the battlefields of the Great Crusade and the Horus Heresy for both sides. Its frame was reinforced and its armor thickened, giving it a hunched, forward-leaning posture that traded speed for resilience. The most striking feature was its main weapon, carried upon its back to better absorb the immense recoil and weight. Its arm weapons were unusual. Pintle-mounted mega-bolters intended to hold enemy knights at bay, while the Titan aligned its devastating neutron laser. These weapons demanded enormous power and produced intense heat, forcing extensive modifications to the carapace and chassis. Some dire wolves bore an even more fearsome burden, mounting a volcano cannon usually reserved for Reaver-class Titans, a choice that required yet further reinforcement and cooling to endure the strain. The Reaver stands as the smallest of the battle Titans, broader and tougher than the Warhound, and able to endure far greater punishment. Much of this resilience comes from the placement of its plasma generator upon the back of the carapace, allowing it to absorb frontal damage that might cripple other engines, though this same design leaves it vulnerable in tight terrain. Rising to a height of just over 25 meters, the Reaver is an older design than the Warlord, and one whose weapons vary widely between patterns. Many carry rocket launchers upon their carapace, while their arms mount a mix of battle and scout-grade weapons. Unlike Warhounds, Reavers can wield close combat arms, making them deadly in Titan-scale melee. Yet as the knowledge to build them slowly fades from the Forge worlds, they have become rarer, often assigned to fire support roles rather than the heart of the fight. Over time, names such as Goth, Vandal, and Hun were used to reflect different weapon fits, each echoing a particular battlefield purpose. The Komodo class was a battle titan deployed by the Collegia Titanica during the Great Wars that shaped the Imperium. It walked during the Great Crusade and the Horus Heresy, leaving only scattered mentions behind. Its presence felt more as a remembered silhouette than a fully preserved legacy. The Punisher class was a rare and unusual titan, distinguished by its three-legged stance that set it apart from all others. One such engine, the Modus Destructor, was deployed to Ulanor Prime, during the War of the Beast in the mid-32nd millennium. There it stood guard over an Adeptus Mechanicus command center, armed with paired Teslin accelerators and underslung plasma annihilators, a solitary sentinel in a brutal campaign. The Executor-class served as a battle titan of the Colgia Titanica and was among the first engines sent to Olenor during the War of the Beast. It marched as part of the opening Imperial strike force, its presence marking the seriousness of the campaign from the very beginning. The Apocalypse class was a rare battle titan that fought during the Great Crusade and the Horus Heresy. It is remembered for its role in the Thramas Crusade, where it took to the field alongside Legio Victorum, its name carried forward by the echoes of that long and bitter war. The Carnivore class was another rare battle titan, used by both Loyalist and Traitor legions during the Great Civil War. It saw heavy fighting at Beta Garman, the clash later known as Titan Death, where Titan met Titan in vast numbers. In size, it stood between the Reaver and the Nightgaunt, occupying a space that mirrored its ambiguous place in history. The Mirage class was a battle titan, comparable in both size and power to the Carnivore and even the Warlord. It was deployed during the Great Crusade and the Horus Heresy, its presence spoken of as something both formidable and fleeting, like its name suggests. The Warbringer Nemesis stands between the Reaver and the Warlord, a battle titan built for distant annihilation. From its back rises the Quake Cannon, a weapon capable of toppling fortresses and shattering other titans with a single shell. Around it, other armaments sweep the skies and the ground alike, cutting down aircraft, armor, and massed infantry without pause. These engines are known for their fiercely independent machine spirits, so aggressive that they sometimes lock onto targets and prepare to fire before their crews are even aware of the threat. In this way, the Warbringer feels less like a tool and more like a willful god of war, ever eager to unleash destruction from afar. Warlord-class Titans are larger and more powerful than the Reaver, and are often regarded as the most common of the true battle Titans within the legions. Standing a little over 32 meters tall by many accounts, though recorded heights vary wildly, they are encased in layered armor and protected by powerful void shields. Imperial records disagree on their true scale, and artwork depicts them anywhere from modest giants to walking mountains. Their weapon mounts allow for immense flexibility, usually bearing battle titan-grade arms capable of reducing entire armies to ash. Some variants are adapted for psychic warfare, while others are grouped with Reavers into mixed battle formations, led by the most senior princeps. Among them, the Mars Alpha pattern is especially ancient and feared, forged on Mars itself and revered as the Omnissiah made manifest. Armed with volcano cannons, laser blasters, and formidable support weapons, it embodies the destructive peak of Imperial warcraft. Though rules exist for their use in war games and campaigns, no official full-scale model has ever been produced, leaving such titans to the imagination and craftsmanship of those who would dare to recreate them. The Warmaster class is named a heavy battle titan by the Adeptus Mechanicus, standing even taller than the Warlord at just over 40 meters. Armed with suzerain plasma destructors, a Revelator missile launcher, and powerful laser weapons, it turns whatever it strikes into ruin. 7 void shields protect it, while numerous servitor clades labor constantly to keep it fighting. The Mechanicum unleashed this god engine only during the Horus Heresy, having hidden its existence as a closely guarded secret. Among its forms, the Warmaster Iconoclast is the most feared, redesigned for brutal close-quarters combat. Its machine spirit is feral and aggressive, driving it straight into fortified strongholds where it tears through shields, walls, and defenders alike. With siege drills, chain swords, flamers, and melt-a-fire, it exists for one purpose alone: total obliteration, and it does not rest until that purpose is fulfilled. Emperor Titans are super heavy battle engines divided into the Imperado and Warmonger classes, each unmatched in sheer firepower. Towering to heights that can reach 150 meters, their legs are vast enough to house entire companies of troops. These Titans do not carry close combat weapons, focusing instead on overwhelming range destruction. Their upper bodies are dominated by fortress-like cathedrals adorned with towers and stained glass, revered as avatars of the Omnissiah. The structures themselves are heavily armed, while the Titan's head sits low beneath them, almost level with its arm weapons. Fallen imperators, such as Dominathus on Lorne 5, or the shattered remains of Aquila Ignis on Cronus, serve as grim reminders of their scale, where even so-called minor defense guns can obliterate heavy vehicles with ease. The Castigator was a singular creation, an autonomous Titan discovered on the Lost Forge world of Coronia. Calling itself the Father of Titans, it claimed origin in the Dark Age of technology, asserting that all later designs were imperfect echoes. Lost within the warp for millennia, it formed a pact with the Black Legion, allowing a demon to possess it in exchange for power, a truth its own intelligence later forgot. When Coronia returned, the Castigator was confronted by Grey Knights led by Justicar Alaric. Only when the Titan accepted the reality of its possession did the demon reveal itself and fall, after which the Castigator was destroyed and its standard template construct data shattered to prevent its misuse. Larger than even an Imperator, graceful and impossibly advanced, it stood apart from all other Titans, wielding weapons that included a cannon capable of firing demons themselves, a legacy of the pact that sealed its fate. Imperial Knights predate the Imperium itself, towering war machines created to protect early human colonies. Their pilots, known as nobles, descend from ancient bloodlines and rule from fortress strongholds built from colony ships. Bound by oaths to Terra or Mars, they form proud knight houses steeped in ritual and duty. Though smaller than true Titans and standing only 30 to 40 feet tall, knights are formidable engines, protected by ion shields and armed with heavy weapons. They move with crushing strength, able to topple tanks and scatter infantry with ease. While a single knight can alter the course of a battle, only the Titans of the Collegia Titanica inspire greater fear among the enemies of mankind. The weapons carried by Titans are chosen with care, shaped by the demands of strategy and the realities of the battlefield. Some are built to focus their immense force on hardened strongholds or armored divisions, striking with patience and precision. Others are meant to sweep across vast formations of troops, or to lay down crushing artillery fire that reshapes the ground itself. In this way, Titan armament naturally settles into two broad paths, each reflecting a different answer to the same problem of overwhelming war. Scout Titans carry weapons that feel quick and purposeful, suited to their lighter frames and their role at the edges of battle. These arms are rarely seen on the largest Titans, and their reach is often shorter, but they strike with speed and intent, tearing through light and medium armored vehicles and breaking dense masses of infantry. In close quarters, the Inferno cannon pours out destruction in a wide, consuming rush, its triple barrels flooding cover with burning force that few can escape. The plasma blast gun, lighter than other plasma weapons, moves at a slower rhythm, yet each discharge carries enough power to cripple armored targets or scatter infantry, shifting its nature depending on what stands before it. There is also the Turbo Laser Destructor, a focused beam of Titan-scale energy, longer in reach and greater in strength, able to burn through tanks or erase tightly packed troops with equal ease. Though it can be borne by a Scout Titan, it is more often trusted to larger battle Titans, better suited to endure the constant duel with heavy armor. Alongside these stands the Vulcan Mega-Bolter, twin assemblies spinning out relentless fire, shredding infantry and lighter vehicles until the ground itself seems to recoil. Battle Titans carry weapons of deeper weight and far greater reach, most often mounted on Reaver and Warlord Titans, whose presence alone dominates the horizon. These armaments are shaped for the destruction of other Titans, the breaking of armored formations, and the reduction of fortresses to ruin. Some of these weapons are born of dark devotion, like the Blood Cannon, which hurls molten demon blood that seeps into armor and circuitry alike. Others rely on sheer physical power, with massive, close combat weapons that tear and crush enemy war engines, provided the Titan can close the distance. Rapid fire also has its place, as seen in the Gatling Blaster, whose heavy shells batter even super heavy armor with relentless force. At the far end of devastation lies the Hellstorm Cannon, whose single salvo can erase entire cities, leaving scars in the earth that linger long after the firing stops. Artillery weapons such as the Quake Cannon and the Volcano Cannon draw directly from a Titan's reactor, their range and power focused on breaking the largest engines of war. Plasma weapons reach their extreme in the Plasma Annihilator, slow to cool yet capable of leveling fortifications and slaughtering infantry in vast numbers. Missiles add another layer of threat, from long-range rocket barrages to weapons that tear open reality itself. Vortex missiles unleash controlled voids that drift and consume, while warp-based missiles slip past shields by passing through the Immaterium, striking Titans where they are most vulnerable. Across long centuries, many other weapons and adaptations were shaped for Titans, each designed for a narrow purpose and used only when the moment demands it. Chaos Titans often bear cruel tools of close combat, such as massive claws, whips, and mutated tails that crush and rend with unsettling grace. Some weapons blend roles, striking at range and in hand-to-hand combat, shifting their nature as the fight unfolds. Siege warfare brings its own instruments, heavy rams and saws that batter walls and fortifications, or unwieldy wrecking devices that reduce buildings to rubble with raw momentum. Other additions reshape how a Titan carries troops, turning parts of its carapace into protected launch points for assault forces or platforms for scouting craft linked directly to the Titan's mind. There are also rarer alterations that change a Titan's very silhouette, such as replacing the head with a massive centerline cannon built for distant bombardment. In such forms, the Titan becomes less a moving warrior and more a walking artillery platform, trading flexibility for overwhelming reach. Some Titans even carry sacred structures, bells that serve as mobile shrines, their presence on the battlefield pushing back demonic influence and drawing the will of the Emperor close. Other specialized weapons speak in quieter but no less terrible ways. The Hellstrike cannon spreads corrosive fire across wide areas, its shells bursting above their targets so that cover offers no comfort. Psychic weapons appear as well, channeled through strange generators that turn warp resonance into crushing kinetic force, allowing swift Titans to stalk artillery along the battlefield's edge. Some adaptations are practical rather than violent, such as reinforced claws fitted to a Titan's feet, granting stability in ruins and sieges at the cost of speed. Even the heads of Titans vary, housing not only the crew but different weapons and devices, each chosen by its order for a specific doctrine of war. Missiles in this category often serve a single, decisive purpose. Some blind sensors and targeting systems, others punch through armor with adamantium tips, and some seize control of an enemy Titan through barbed cables and surging power. The most dangerous of all tear open space itself, creating vortices or slipping through the warp to appear beyond shields, sometimes even within the target they were meant to destroy. As Titans grow in size, their armor thickens, layer upon layer of protection built to endure unimaginable punishment. Beyond this solid shell, void shields shimmer into being, absorbing destructive energy until their limits are reached. These shields can be pushed beyond safety by the will of the princeps, buying precious moments of survival at the risk of lasting damage. Void shields are always raised in groups, so that even under sustained fire, one may remain standing. Yet they are not absolute. Blades and crushing blows pass through them, as do certain weapons that slip through the immaterium to strike from within. In theory, even small arms fire could wear them down, though in practice, such attempts are almost always futile, ending beneath the Titan's return fire or its sheer physical weight. The largest Titans also bristle with smaller defensive weapons, placed to guard against infantry and aircraft that slip beneath the notice of greater guns. Multi-lasers and other point defense systems quietly watch the skies and streets below, ensuring that even the smallest threats are answered. Very very little is truly known about how Imperial Titans are brought into being, and what knowledge exists feels distant and carefully guarded. Across many Forge worlds, these vast war engines are shaped according to local patterns, with Mars and Lucius remembered as the sources of the most widely used forms, while other great worlds, such as Ryza and the now-destroyed Gryphon 4, once carried the same heavy responsibility. In much of the Imperium, the skills needed to create advanced machines have slowly faded, lost over long ages as society itself has worn down. Titans stand apart from this loss because they were not born from standard template constructs of the dark age of technology, with a single exception, and so the Adeptus Mechanicus has preserved the knowledge required to build most of their variants. Even so, nothing is simple. Every machine made by the Mechanicus demands elaborate ceremonial rituals, and a Titan magnifies this requirement beyond measure. Its construction becomes an immense and patient labor, sometimes stretching across many Terran centuries, calling upon the finest fabricators and the purest materials, while time itself seems to slow around the growing form. The Titan legions, much like the Space Marines, carry their history upon their armor, expressed through colors, symbols, and long-kept traditions. Each legio and each order has its own system of heraldry, shaped by past victories, by ancient origins, and by the character shared among those who serve within it. These colors are not chosen lightly. They are held with pride, and over long ages they have changed far less than one might expect. Even in the distant days of the ancient Legio Titanicus, these colors endured. They were carried forward into successor legios during the Horus Heresy and through the long violence of the Great Scouring that followed. In that age of division, color became more than identity. It became a declaration of loyalty, a visible sign of devotion either to the Emperor or to Warmaster Horus. Each order bears its own emblem and chosen palette. The Divisio Militaris Order of the Legio Ignatum, for example, clad all its Titans in red and gold. Upon each carapace was painted the emblem of a wasp within a white triangle edged in blue, alongside the banner of the Collegia Titanica. On the lower fairings of each leg, placed where ground troops could see, the symbol of the Titan's class was displayed. From the waist of every engine hung a personal honor banner, the victory banner of its princeps, marked with the badge of the Legio, and in the case of the fire wasps, white skulls that spoke quietly of triumph. Beyond this, many crews added their own marks. Kill banners were fastened to weapons, recording victories burned by each gun, sometimes marked with unofficial symbols chosen by a princeps or a moderatus. Personal emblems and short slogans appeared on carapaces, weapons, or leg armor, and in many legios such expression was permitted, so long as the core colors and badges were never forgotten. After the Horus Heresy, the loyal legions of the Collegia Titanica began to bear purity seals. These large seals, fashioned from soft metal and placed by the tech priests of the Adeptus Mechanicus, served as signs of purity and as wards against corruption. Painted with runes and adorned with long ribbons, they remain upon Titans to this day, quiet reminders of the shameful time when so many engines were turned against the Emperor by chaos. During the Great Scouring, Titans also carried campaign pennants upon their Divisio Militaris banners. Long white flags marked with loyalist slogans, phrases such as Perfidi Burgendi or Bella Maiustum, words that spoke of treachery purged and of just war. Such banners are rarely seen now, for few wars have demanded such devotion. The traitor Titan legions followed a different path. Many kept their old colors after the conflict: black, white, and yellow for the Fire Masters, black and orange for the Legio Furians, black, white, and red for the Legio Mortis. Imperial banners were cast aside, replaced instead by flags bearing the Eye of Horus, a stark sign of rebellion and sworn loyalty to the Warmaster. A Titan is commanded by a single individual, known as the Princeps, a rare soul capable of remaining sane while linking their mind to the machine spirit of the war engine. This bond is formed through the Mind Impulse Unit, a neural interface that allows thought to become movement, intention to become action. Through this link, the Princeps does not simply operate the Titan, but enters an immersive inner space often called the Manifold, where the boundaries between human perception and machine awareness begin to fade. Within this shared mental space, the Princeps issues commands, not with spoken words or physical gestures, but with pure intent. The Titan responds as though it were a living body, its vast systems moving in enforced cooperation with its machine spirit. The strain of such control is immense, and few Princeps can endure full command for long. For this reason, they are supported by Moderati, junior officers who assume responsibility for specific systems, easing the mental burden and allowing the war engine to function as a whole. To make this communion possible, the Princeps must submit to extensive augmentation. Implants are placed along the spine, the neck, and the skull, reshaping the central nervous system to accept the Mind Impulse Unit. In some cases, the transformation is taken further, and the Princeps is interred within an amniotic tank. Suspended in a thick polycarbon fluid, their body is supported entirely by machinery, their vital functions maintained by the tank itself. The fluid stabilizes the nervous system and creates a controlled internal environment, sometimes even serving as a medium for oxygen and nourishment. When the fluid cannot sustain breathing, external circulation systems take over, routing oxygenated blood directly through the heart by means of an artificial opening between its upper chambers. The lungs fall silent, unnecessary within the tank, and the body is sustained in a state that closely resembles an unborn child within the womb. In such cases, limbs that no longer serve a purpose may be removed and replaced with augmetic interfaces, while the eyes may be taken away entirely, their function replaced by the Titan's sensors and auspexes. Even the empty sockets become pathways for deeper connection, using the remaining nerves to strengthen the link. This form of interfacing binds the Princeps to the machine spirit more completely than any hard connection ever could. Disconnection becomes difficult and dangerous, requiring complex rituals overseen by senior tech priests. When performed incorrectly, the consequences can be severe, leaving lasting damage to the mind. Yet the reward is total immersion. Princeps gains unmatched understanding of the Titan and reacts with greater speed and instinct, remaining in constant communion even when the engine lies dormant. Such permanence comes at a cost. While these Princeps avoid the pain of separation suffered by others, their bodies weaken and their minds retreat ever deeper into the manifold. Over time, personality erodes and humanity slips away, until the individual becomes little more than a malfunctioning component within the machine. Because of this, many fear amniotic immersion, and some crews regard those who embrace it with unease, despite its clear advantages. In other cases, immersion is not a choice, but a necessity. After catastrophic injury or the destruction of a Titan, or when addiction to the link becomes unbearable, the tank preserves what remains of the Princeps and anchors their sanity through permanent connection. When fully linked, the Titan's form becomes their own. Weapon arms feel like hands, sensors replace sight, and the adamantium hull feels like skin. Command becomes instinctive, effortless, intoxicating. Even so, the Princeps remains aware of their own body, able to act within the cockpit while simultaneously inhabiting the war engine. Maintaining dominance requires immense will. If control slips, a Titan may rampage, driven by its own ancient instincts. Some machine spirits carry the imprints of past commanders, and in rare cases, a Princeps who dies while linked leaves behind a lingering presence, a ghost within the link. Binding a human mind to such a ferocious intelligence is dangerous work. The machine spirit resists control, savage and self-aware, and only those with exceptional resolve can master it. Such individuals are exceedingly rare, and the Collegia Titanica searches relentlessly for them wherever they may be found. Because so few possess the qualities required to command a Titan, the search for Princeps extends far beyond the faithful of the cult Mechanicus. Among the countless citizens of the Imperium, only a tiny fraction show the necessary mental strength, and fewer still survive the long training to reach command. Those who do are considered priceless, and their forge worlds will spare no effort to recover them if there is any chance they still live. There are two paths to this role. Some are trained from the beginning within the academies of the Collegia Titanica, while others rise through service as moderati, eventually assuming command of a smaller war engine, often a Warhound-class Titana. Regardless of origin, all Princeps are shaped by the same bond, and that bond is addictive. The sensation of becoming a godlike engine of war is overwhelming, and life outside the link can feel painfully small by comparison. When separated from their Titan, many suffer intense craving, and this withdrawal only hastens mental collapse. If they do not fall in battle, some eventually lose themselves to the machine spirit when their will finally breaks. Even while linked, the task of control is exhausting. The flood of sensation and data makes precise command difficult, and few can manage every system at once. Moderati therefore remain essential, sharing the burden and ensuring the Titan functions smoothly. Over time, Princeps and Titan leave marks upon one another. The machine spirit learns from its commander, storing experience and memory for future bonds. The Princeps, in turn, begins to reflect the nature of the war engine they command. Titans of the same class tend to shape their commanders in similar ways. Those who led swift Scout Titans are often aggressive and solitary, while others show calmer traits, better suited to coordinated warfare. Within the Titan's head, the Princeps sits upon the command throne, surrounded by Moderati, steersmen, and other officers who manage movement, weapons, and sensor arrays. The size of the crew grows with the size of the machine, each role supporting the whole. All who might one day command begin their careers on Mars, learning not only how to pilot a Titan, but how to perform the rituals and doctrines that define service to the cult Mechanicus. Beyond the command crew, tech priests maintain the engine and perform the sacred rites it requires, while servitors handle routine tasks and monitor systems without rest. The largest Titans may even carry armed Mechanicus forces prepared to defend the god machine from boarding or sabotage should the enemy draw too close. During the Horus Heresy, many Titan legions turned away from the Imperium, pledging themselves to the Warmaster Horus and the Dark Mechanicum. Since that distant age, the influence of the ruinous powers has reshaped them in unsettling ways. Some of these traitor Princeps and Moderati remain outwardly unchanged, still commanding their war engines much as they always did. Others have not been so fortunate. Their bodies have been twisted and fused with their corrupted Titans, no longer merely linked in mind, but bound in flesh as well. In these cases, the distinction between pilot and machine has all but vanished, leaving behind something both human and monstrous, sustained by corruption and war. During the Horus Heresy, a great divide spread through the ancient Mechanicum, and nearly half of its strength followed the Warmaster Horus, carrying with them several hundred Titan legions and the towering machines they commanded. Over time, their loyalty shifted fully, and they became known to the Loyalists as the Dark Mechanicum, bound not only by rebellion, but by devotion to chaos itself. These Chaos Titans still resemble their Imperial counterparts, yet long exposure to the warping energies of chaos has left deep marks upon them. Some have changed so completely that the crew and the machine are no longer separate, flesh and metal fused together until the boundary between them is lost. Others chose a different path, offering themselves and their weapons wholly to one of the four great ruinous powers, shaping both purpose and form through that devotion. Among all these corrupted engines of war, one name is remembered with particular weight. The Imperator-class Emperor Titan dies Irae, whose name means Day of Wrath in High Gothic, once advanced against the battlements of the Imperial Palace during the Siege of Terra. Long after that age had passed, 10,000 standard years later, it met its end during an Iron Warriors campaign on the Imperial world of Hydra Cordatus. There, it faced an entire demi-legion of 12 Imperial Titans, destroying almost all of them before it was finally brought low by the Warlord-class Titan Honoris Causa. Like their Imperial counterparts, the Scout Titans, dedicated to Slaanesh, move with startling speed, reaching the enemy while the rest of the host is still closing the distance. As they glide along the edges of the battlefield, their forms shimmer with power, sustained by raw energy drawn directly from the immaterium to keep their presence anchored in the physical world. Within each hardened carapace resides a bound daemon, its will guiding the god engine as effortlessly as a thought, its weapons answering like the smallest gesture. These titans do not rely on ion shields. Instead, a shifting veil of warp energy surrounds them, created by an internal interface that binds the demonic spirit to matter. This veil, known as the glamour of Slanesh, bends perception and makes accurate targeting difficult, much like an Eldari holofield. The glamour offers little protection against wide barrages that do not depend on precision, yet it does blunt assaults that draw upon the warp itself, including psychic attacks and vortex weapons. Among these titans, the Subjugator races ahead of Slanesh's armies, suppressing enemy fire with Cypulse generators that channel raw psychic force, tearing through armor as it hunts enemy artillery along the flanks. The Questor follows a similar path, its graceful limbs bearing Tormentor cannons and Laskanan fire, striking without warning before vanishing once more, leaving confusion and wreckage behind. Feral-class Titans are twisted reflections of the Imperial Warhound, serving the same swift and aggressive role upon the battlefield. Their existence is a reminder of ancient betrayal, for many Titan legions turned from the Emperor during the Horus Heresy and fled into exile when their cause was lost. Over uncounted millennia, these war machines have fought in the long war against the Imperium, their once loyal machine spirits thoroughly corrupted by the warp and the favor of the ruinous powers. Some are so old that they predate the heresy itself, their crews and spirits long since possessed by demons. Titan and crew become a single damned entity, bound forever to serve the will of the Chaos Gods in endless battle. Ravager-class Titans are the Chaos counterparts of the Imperial Reaver, ancient and irreplaceable survivors of the Horus Heresy. They belong to those traitor Titan legions whose names still carry dread across thousands of Terran years, their engines worn by endless service in the wars of chaos. Some were corrupted long ago by the touch of the warp, while others were captured from Imperial battlefields and remade through bloody rites to serve the Chaos Gods. Over time, each becomes an inseparable fusion of demon and machine, its living crew absorbed into a tainted machine spirit. Revered by the Dark Mechanicus and feared by lesser servants, these towering engines are treated as living gods of fire and death, fed with sacrifice as they march toward unending destruction. Among the forces of chaos, Warlord-class Titans stand as rare relics from the Horus Heresy, preserved through ages of war and corruption. Once loyal engines, they were claimed by the ruinous powers and reshaped, earning new names that set them apart from their imperial kin. Each variant reflects the will of a different chaos god, though the Bane Lord is most often seen, its form dedicated to Khorne and altered with cannons, a long weapon tip-tail, and brutal close assault arms. Other warlords bear the marks of Nurgle, Slanesh, or Sinch, each changed in spirit and purpose, yet all bound by the same ancient oath to destruction and the endless service of chaos. Emperor-class Titans are the greatest war engines ever forged by the Imperium, and those that fell to chaos during the Horus Heresy are now rare beyond measure. When they walk, it is only because the forces of chaos have accepted any cost for victory, for many are possessed by greater demons and transformed into towering embodiments of warp-corrupted steel. Abominatus, the despoiler of worlds, stands as a fusion of Imperator Titan and a greater daemon of Khorne, shaking the ground with every step and unleashing fire from countless weapons and brutal claws. Ogminatus Rex once laid waste to defenders on the Forge world of Orestes, its fall requiring an unprecedented union of minds and prolonged destruction even after it was disabled. Others linger in memory, like Bubonis, the Plague Titan of Nurgle, and Caligula, another host to Khorne's fury. Most infamous of all was D's Array, which stormed the Imperial Palace during the Battle of Terra and fought on for 10,000 years more before its final destruction. Skylock, the winged Titan of Sinch, was something stranger still, a singular union of demon and engine, a reminder that even the mightiest machines can be remade by chaos. A Garganet is what the orcs build when war begins to feel inevitable. It is their answer to a Titan, but also something more personal, shaped by belief as much as by iron. These vast machines stand as idols to Gork and Mork, carrying devotion in their bulk and destruction in their guns. It begins quietly, with a big meek receiving what feels like a divine vision, whispered by Gork or perhaps Mork, and that vision demands to be made real. Plates of thick armor are bolted together, engines cough smoke into the air, and oversized guns are added without restraint. Other big mechs notice, drawn by rivalry and inspiration, and soon more Gargants rise, scattered across the system. Their appearance is a familiar sign, a warning that a Wog is gathering strength. Within an Ork warband, these creations exist on every scale. Some are little more than kilogans, cramped walkers piloted by a single Gretchen, while others grow into vast Mega-Gargants, towering armored forms that dominate the battlefield. Between them lies a whole family of brutal, stomping war machines, each built with the same restless intent. Stompus sits somewhere between vehicles and Titans, heavy shapes of metal built into rough orc forms that loom over the ground. They are armored fighting machines rather than true war engines, carrying weapons meant for distant targets as well as close, crushing violence. On the battlefield, they move like massive tanks, advancing with steady purpose. Some grow larger and more dangerous, becoming Super Stompus. These carry greater power and are counted among war engines, mounting weapons usually reserved for Gargants themselves. In strength and firepower, they stand close to a Warhound-class Scout Titan, not in elegance or precision, but in sheer destructive presence. Gargants and Great Gargants are the true Titans of the Orcs, fast and unmistakable in form. Compared to Imperial Titans, they are broader and squat, their weight pressed low and solid, yet they carry the same purpose. They are engines of destruction and sacred idols at once, shaped in honor of Gork and Mork. Once again, it starts with a vision, received by a big mech and transformed translated into metal and fire. Armor is piled thick, engines roar and belch smoke, and guns grow larger than seems reasonable. Other big mechs nearby cannot ignore this, and soon competition takes hold, each trying to outdo the others. Gargants rise across orc-settled regions, marking the approach of another Wog. In an orc army, these machines exist alongside many others, from the smallest kilocans crewed by lone Gretchens to the immense Mega-Gargants that stride like armored behemoths across the field. The Mega-Gargant is rare, even among orcs, and its size places it alongside the greatest Titans known. It rivals Imperator and Warmonger-class Emperor Titans in sheer scale, though its power does not quite match them. Still, its presence is overwhelming. Unlike other Gargants that shuffle forward on short mechanical legs, this one moves on tracks, turning itself into a roaming fortress. It carries a wide array of weapons, including the massive Mega Dropper, and rolls steadily across the battlefield. Less a walker and more a moving stronghold of orc war. Some big mechs find battle wagons too small for their ambitions. When that happens, they turn their skills toward building a Stompa or even a Gargant of their own design. These creations carry the newest meek weapons, devices like the Lifta Droppa, and reflect the status and resources of their maker. The size of such a machine depends on influence, available materials, and who the meek chooses to work with. At times, two mechs will join forces, driven by shared obsession or direct orders from a larger and tougher war boss or warlord. Together, they bring another towering monstrosity into being. No two Gargants are ever the same. Their construction is chaotic and varied, shaped by the wild imagination of the mech boys who build them. Weapons are loud, unreliable, and awkward, yet when they function, they cause terrible damage. Close combat arms are common because charging forward and smashing into the enemy feels properly orky. For defense, Gargants rely on power fields, the orc equivalent of void shields. These fields are intense and reflective, but unlike Imperial systems, they cannot be restored once lost during battle. Inside, the Gargant is crowded with life. Orcs and Gretchens fill its chambers, led by a captain who issues orders through a network of officers. Messages travel through speaking tubes, echoing through metal corridors. Each officer controls a section, a weapon, an engine room, or a magazine, with crews beneath them carrying out the work. Gretchens handle repairs, crawling through narrow spaces with tools and oily rags. Compared to Imperial Titans, Gargants have weaker armor and shorter ranged weapons, yet their dense and crude construction makes them hard to destroy. They avoid catastrophic reactor meltdowns, but fire and exploding magazines remain a constant and dangerous threat. Eldari Titans move through war with a grace that feels almost unreal. They are quick and nimble machines, lightly armored, yet never weak in intent. Their frames are slender, built for speed rather than endurance, and they cross the battlefield with frightening ease, lifted and guided by jump jets that let them reposition before an enemy can fully react. Where other Titans rely on void shields, The Eldari trust in advanced holographic field generators. These holofields, working together with constant motion, make the Titans difficult to see and harder still to strike. They do not truly turn aside enemy fire, and when a blow does land, the machine remains vulnerable. Survival comes not from endurance, but from never being where the enemy expects. At the heart of each Titan rests something far more intimate than engines alone. They are powered by the spirits of individual craftworld Asuryani, held within a psychoreactive core of wraithbone. This same material forms the Titan's carapace, light in weight yet remarkably durable, and alive to psychic touch. The pilots link their minds directly to these spirits, much as a princeps bonds with a machine spirit, and through this bond, the Titan moves like an extension of the pilot's own body. The spirits do more than obey, they sharpen awareness, amplifying already superhuman reflexes and reaction times until movement and thought become one. Among these war machines, there are several distinct forms. The Revenant is a relatively light Titan, comparable in scale to an Imperial Warhound, though far more agile. It excels in sudden strikes, rushing into enemy lines and withdrawing before retaliation can take shape. These Titans are often deployed in pairs, their pilots commonly siblings, bound by blood and psychic connection that allows communication at the speed of thought. Larger and more imposing is the Phantom, a Titan capable of facing the great engines of the Imperium. What sets it apart is not only its size, but its crew, for within its wraithbone matrix dwell the souls and memories of ancient Eldari warriors, preserved and carried forward into battle. Beyond even this stands the Warlock, a refinement of the Phantom form. Its core houses the spirits of departed Asuryani seers and warlocks, their combined psychic power focused into a single engine of destruction, calm in presence, and almost impossible to halt once it is set in motion. Bio-Titans are not simply larger Tyranid creatures. They exist on the same scale as the Titans, fielded by other intelligent races, living war engines shaped by the Tyranid hive fleets after encountering similar colossal machines across the Milky Way galaxy. They are not unleashed at the beginning of a war, but arrive later when a world is already being drawn into the slow, inevitable process of assimilation. Their vast biomechanical weapons are powerful, yet their true terror comes from how efficiently they fight at close range. Against enemy Titans and other war engines, they move with unsettling speed, often surging forward rather than advancing cautiously. Ripper tentacles lash out to disable enemy close combat weapons, while immense claws tear through armored hulls with brutal ease. Unlike Imperial Titans or Ork Gargants, Bio-Titans do not raise void shields. Instead, their bodies endure by healing themselves, flesh and kitten knitting back together as they fight. Some early forms could surround themselves with bioplasma fields, dulling the deadly precision of Imperial volcano cannons, though more recent encounters suggest that this protection is no longer present in newer strains. Among these immense creatures are the Vituperator, the dreaded Hierophant, and the even larger Hydrophant, each standing in rough equivalence to Imperial Warhound, Reaver, and Warlord Titans. Beyond these towering forms, other Tyranid bioforms still stalk the battlefield, such as the burrowing Drygon or the winged Harridan, the latter a war engine in its own right, but not counted among the Titans. There is also the Dominatrix, a specialized and rare breed. It is not only massive, but deeply intelligent, a synapse creature whose malignant mind directs surrounding swarms with chilling efficiency. On the battlefield, it stands as the supreme commander of Tyranid forces, surpassed only by the distant ship-bound Norn queens themselves. The god engines stand now in memory, not as distant legends, but as presences that once walked, fought, and endured. They were shaped by necessity on a wounded world, carried outward into the dark, and bound forever to the forge worlds that gave them form. Each Titan was more than steel and fire, carrying a name, a will, and a spirit that could remember triumph as easily as loss. They towered above the battlefield in many forms, from swift scouts to the rare kings of war, each one bound to the same ancient order and purpose. Within them stirred minds that could greet their pilots, suffer trauma, or fall into rage, reminding all who served them that these engines were never truly inert. What remains is the sense of scale and reverence of machines treated as living relics. Even in silence, the Titans linger, vast and patient, echoes of a time when faith, war, and metal were fused into